The heart. How can the heart lead to one's success or misery? 7. What does the heart of one who will succeed have that the heart of another who will be destroyed does not? And what is it about the heart that makes it so important? To understand the heart, Ibn Taymiyyah draws a comparison with it to the body. The main function of the body is to sustain life, and to the degree that it does so, it is healthy. Its sustaining of life is primarily in two abilities, perception and movement. The perception is the senses, it needs to see where it's going and taste to detect whether a food is good or bad. The movement is the abilities of the limbs and organs, to walk, breathe and digest food. Their work one way or the other contributes to its primary function of sustaining life. Weakness in this function is seen in a typical old man. He cannot move as a youth, perhaps his sight becomes weak or completely blind. He can't eat any kind of food but rather has to be careful about what he eats. Compare that to a typical doctor or bodybuilder. He is strong, energetic, and able to heal himself and bounce back much faster from diseases. The old man is sick while the doctor is healthy. What differentiates the old man from the doctor is the presence of diseases in the body. Diseases cause degeneration in the body's function of sustaining life, primarily affecting its abilities of movement and perception, so they fail to work as they ought to. By diseases of the body, I mean that which affects the health of the body and weakens its function to sustain life. For example, failure in the body's ability to perceive can be mild, where his sight and hearing are not as strong. It can be complete, whereby a person is blind, or it can be incorrect, whereby a person hallucinates, i.e. sees things that are not in reality there, or whereby sweet food tastes bitter to him. Failure in the body's ability to move can be seen in indigestion, cravings, or even aversion to nourishment. The failure comes as a result of what is consumed, as is known with junk food, or as a result of wrong application of something, as is seen with drugs, or even a physical attack that damages the body. As these abilities are needed to sustain life, when they are weakened, the body's function weakens, which can appear as discomfort, weakness or pain, the severity of which depends on the degree to which it fails to sustain life. And if it reaches a point whereby it can no longer sustain life, it dies. Now for the heart. The main function of the heart is to remain in a state of purity and soundness, and to the degree that it does so, it is healthy. Its purity is primarily in two abilities, perception and desire. The perception, like the body's, is similar to the senses, but deals more with seeking and knowing the truth, what it sees and hears in relation to reality, and whether or not it benefits. They are deaf, dumb and blind. So they do not understand. Those who reject our ayat proofs, evidences, verses, lessons, signs, revelations, etc. The deaf and dumb in darkness. Verily, it is not the eyes that grow blind, but it is the hearts which are in the breasts that grow blind. The desires are what the heart intends and seeks due to its attachment to the desired object, irrespective of whether or not it will benefit it. Think of a man hopelessly in love with a woman. These abilities one way or the other contribute to its primary function of being pure. Beautified for men is the love of things they desire, women, children, much of gold and silver, wealth, branded beautiful horses, cattle and well-tilled land. This is the pleasure of the present world's life, but Allah has the excellent return with him. And whoever desires a reward in this world, we shall give him of it, and whoever desires a reward in the hereafter, we shall give him thereof. Say, O Muhammad, I have been forbidden to worship those whom you invoke worship besides Allah. Say, I will not follow your vain desires. If I did, I would go astray, and I would not be one of the rightly guided. Weakness in this function is seen in one whom you might call a criminal who is careless in sinning, more specifically, disobeying the commands of Allah. He pursues the life of this world with greed and lust. He disregards the book of Allah, believing it to be words of man, does actions seeking thereby the enjoyment of the life of this world. Compare that to a Tyne scholar or worshipper who is careful about committing sins and strives to avoid them altogether. He is conscious of Allah, doing actions according to the guidance of his book, and seeks until them his pleasure and reward. The criminal is sick and the scholar is healthy. What differentiates the worshipper from the criminal is the presence of diseases in the heart. Diseases cause degeneration in the heart's function of remaining pure, primarily affecting its abilities of perception and desire, so they fail to work as they ought to. By diseases of the heart, I meant that which affects the health and weakens its function to remain pure. Unlike the body, corruption is a better description than failure. Corruption of the perception of the heart is whatever causes it, usually from the life of this world, to take other than Allah as the one-time object of desire. This is as a result of the corruption of the person's knowledge, so the heart perceives as true what does not benefit it. And we had assigned them the faculties of hearing, ears, seeing, eyes, and hearts, but their hearing, ears, seeing, eyes, and their hearts availed them nothing, since they used to deny the ayat, Allah's prophets and their prophethood, proofs, evidences, verses, signs, revelations, etc. of Allah. Notice Ayub 5*5 did not complain for whatever he lost when he was tried, because he had the correct knowledge and he already had what he wanted, Allah. With the knowledge corrupted, the heart of the sick person attaches itself to what does not benefit it and then seeks to obtain that desire, usually at the cost of disobedience to Allah. Such a person becomes desirous on the object which sows in such heart desires of greed, pride, lust, etc. Nuh was accused by his people of seeking leadership amongst them and wanting wealth, and that none followed him except the weak and the poor. They desired the attractions of the worldly life and saw the message of Nuh as something that took them away from it. Though these abilities are needed for the heart to be pure, you might have noticed that when they are weakened, the signs, unlike the body, have no physical appearance. It is seen in people's disregard of the rights of Allah and disobedience to His Messenger. It is also known as the hardness of the heart, or worse, its death. When the heart is affected by diseases, it becomes corrupt, but unlike the body, where if its primary function fails then it dies, rather than the heart dying, it only increases in corruption, making it worse than death. We understand the implication of a body that dies, but people vastly underestimate the implication of a corrupted heart. What makes a heart so important that its corruption will cause people to be destroyed? First of all, you have to understand just how important the heart is. All that Allah says is ta'in, no doubt about that, and when He then swears, it is to show emphasis. Allah did not swear with anything more than what He swore with regarding the heart, saying about it, by the sun and its brightness, and by the moon as it follows it, the sun, and by the day as it shows up the sun's brightness, and by the night as it conceals it, the sun, and by the heaven and Him who built it, and by the earth and Him who spread it, and by the soul and Him who perfected him in proportion. Indeed He succeeds who purifies it, and indeed He fails who corrupts it. It being the heart. And He says about the day of judgment, the day where neither wealth nor sons will avail, except him who brings to Allah a clean heart. The Prophet said about it, there is a piece of flesh in the body. If it is sound, the whole body is sound. If it is corrupt, the whole body is corrupt. It is the heart. Iblis was one of the best worshippers of Allah. His knowledge was perhaps at a level many scholars will never reach. He was raised up to the heavens to worship Allah along with the angels. In heaven was all he will ever need, free of corruption and want, free of bad influence. All he had to do was worship Allah. Yet the creation of Adam was a trial for him, and he fell from Allah's grace and became the shaitan. Adam, on the other hand, was in a similar condition when in paradise with his wife. He could do all he wanted except eat of the tree which was forbidden to him. When Shaitan lured him into eating of it, the punishment came immediately. His clothing was removed, his crown was lost, and his nakedness was revealed. But he turned to Allah in that desperate situation, seeking His forgiveness with a repentant heart, and he was forgiven. What people don't seem to understand is that we are being tested. End of next chapter. And the only way to pass the test is with a pure heart. Shaitan's heart was corrupted. It mattered not the condition he was in, he was going to be destroyed. Adam's heart was pure. As bad as the sin was, Allah forgave him for it. All I've mentioned since the first chapter was building up to this. The people who will succeed are those with a pure heart, and the people who will fail are those with a corrupted heart. Take your time to think about those who failed and their hearts, and those who succeeded in their hearts. Perhaps the one who had the greatest signs of Allah sent to him was Pharaoh. He had the firstborn sons of the children of Israel killed to avert the dream of him and his people perishing at the hand of a man from the children of Israel, yet he ended up being the one who raised Musa. Many years later, Musa comes to him informing him that he is a messenger from Allah, calling him to believe in him. When he rejected, Musa showed him how his staff would become a snake when placed on the ground, and how his hand becomes pure white when he put it under his arm and removed it, the first two signs that he was truthful. But Pharaoh claimed that he was a magician and summoned all the best magicians of his kingdom to compete with Musa. His magicians were not only defeated, but they also believed in Musa and accepted Islam, and so Pharaoh had them tortured to death. Then a drought came unto the land of Egypt, and when it became severe on the people, they came to Musa, telling him to invoke his Lord for water, and if their water returns, they will believe in him. So he prayed to Allah and water returned, but they refused to believe. Then their crops became infected with locust, destroying it, so they returned to Musa, making the same promise as before, and when it was lifted, they did the same as before. And this continued with the lice plague, and the frog plague, and the river Nile turning to blood. Many more understand it better than me, and putting it in words fails to give an accurate description. I would however like to describe it with two stories, so as to provide a better understanding. And yet Pharaoh never believed. Many would think if they were in Pharaoh's shoes, they would have believed. What they do not realize is that we all are in Pharaoh's shoes, just provided with different signs and given different favors. Pharaoh, like all of us, was being tested, but the hardness and corruption of his heart did not make him believe. And though the test is different for people, the root of failure is in the corruption of the heart, not shaitan, not the idols. So the solution isn't to believe where other people failed, because it has already become clear. The solution is to purify the heart. A pure heart will succeed no matter the test, like Ayub, and corrupted heart will never accept the truth no matter the signs shown, like Pharaoh. You might have noticed that I'm not clarifying what exactly is a pure heart and a corrupt heart. That is because its reality is deep and open to people according to their. The most hated.